Hi there, welcome back to my YouTube channel, and Happy New Year to you. I didn't do a video last week because, well, of course it was Christmas, and I figured that many of you would want to spend your time celebrating with your families, and nobody wants to watch me on Christmas and right at that period of time, so I figured you had time with your own families that was important to you, and it was important to me as well, so I didn't do a video last week, but I'm back this week to continue my 50 greatest Western films of all time. And this week we're going to be doing 28 through 30. I must apologize if my voice gets a little bad here. I apologize for it. I don't know, I feel fine, but I've been struggling with trying to keep my voice. So if that happens a little bit, I apologize. Number 26 was a film that was made in 1950. And the film is called The Gunfighter. This film starred Gregory Peck. It had Richard Jekyll in it. It also had Carl Malden. The Gunfighter is a rare film in a lot of ways, mainly because it was rare, extremely rare back then, for them to put a Western hero in a mustache. It just seldom was ever done. And so this was kind of an unusual thing. But Gregory Peck's character, Jimmy Ringo, is a famous gunman. He's known far and wide. There's no shortage of people that want to challenge him in a gunfight and maybe try to best him in a gunfight, kill him, and then they would have the reputation that the man they killed had. And so there was no shortage of people that wanted to try Mr. Ringo here. And a man named Eddie, who's played by Richard Jekyll, who's a fine actor, and he goes for years and years. Strangely enough, Richard Jekyll was a man that he just never seemed like he ever aged. And he was an extraordinary actor, and he played Eddie in this, and he didn't have a very long role because Eddie decided to challenge Jimmy Ringo, and he got shot. And that upsets his three brothers, who decide they're going to kill him. Well, Ringo ambushes them, runs their horses off, and then he goes to town where he wants to see the woman he loved and the son that he knows he has, and hopes to be able to meet them. And the film spends about the whole time. It reminds you a little bit of High Noon in the fact that time becomes a factor in it. He keeps checking the time and figuring how long it would take these three brothers to catch up with him. And he's trying to do all this stuff, maybe patch up things with an old love, and also meet the son that he knows they created. And he's trying to get this done in a period of time and get out of town before they could maybe get their horses back and come to town and try to kill him. And this is how the film starts. And it's just, The Gunfighter is just an excellent film. I just think this is a good film, an excellent film, and the time of it, Gregory Peck is just brilliant in this. This is a rather slow film to some of you may think so, but this is just an excellent film, and Gregory Peck was superb in this. The next film on our list is from 1957, and that is Gunfight at the OK Corral. The Gunfight at the OK Corral, I don't need to tell you what happened in this film. If you know anything about the Tombstone story, and you know anything about Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday, I don't have to tell you what happens in this film, because it's apparent to everybody. This is another Hollywood venture into the Tombstone story. This film was sort of a remake of The Hour of the Gun, which starred James Garner, and My Darling Clementine, which starred Henry Fonda, and was made long before that. This film has Burt Lancaster plays Wyatt Earp here. Now, and I've told you before that I just think that Burt Lancaster is just a super actor. He says so much, he portrays so much just in his face and his actions. And actually, I think Burt Lancaster in this bears a lot of resemblance to the character he played in Lawman that I've already mentioned that I liked real well. Burt Lancaster is just a great actor. Playing Doc Holliday is Kirk Douglas, and we all know Kirk Douglas. The man he's a superior actor, super in Westerns, pretty good about everything else, and Kirk Douglas is just a a fine, fine actor. Also, this film has a bunch of names of people you will know: Earl Holliman, Dennis Hopper, Jack Elam, Lee Van Cleef. This film also stars a man named DeForest Kelley, who plays Morgan Earp. If you do not know who DeForest Kelley is, all I need to remind you of is Star Trek, and he played the Doctor in Star Trek. He was Bones. Jim, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. That was Bones in Star Trek, but in this film he played Morgan Earp. Honestly, Gunfight at the OK Corral is probably not as historically accurate as Tombstone, possibly, but it does a much better job of telling the truth than My Darling Clementine did, or even Hour of the Gun, which didn't portray the thing very accurately. And so this is, in my opinion, a much better portrayal of the actual gunfight at the OK Corral than some of the other films that have come before it. But this film is really all about Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas as Wyatt Earp and Doc Holliday. And pretty much, if you get right down to it, about every film that has anything to do with the town of Tombstone, it's pretty much based and dropped on, and everything's dependent on the characters of Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp. I mean, in so many of these films, the person playing Doc steals the show in them. This film also has a great musical score attached to it. The Gunfight at the OK Corral is sung in this by Frankie Laine. Frankie Laine, if you do not know that name, he's the guy that sings the theme from Rawhide. So you're all familiar with his voice. The man's done a lot of Western songs and musical scores, and he just has a voice that does this stuff very well. And Frankie Laine Frankie Laine is just a legend when it comes to singing musical scores and westerns. And the musical score in this, the song "Gunfight at the OK Corral," was voted by the Western Writers of America as the top 100 Western songs of all time. So it's in that crew. So it's got some pretty good company here. It's a great song in with it. It's a great theme that runs along with the film. And Gunfight at the OK Corral is well worth your time. Well worth your time. And I hope you'll check it out. The next film on our list is from 1950. And it stars Jimmy Stewart. And that's Winchester 73. This film was directed by Anthony Mann. Anthony Mann directed a whole lot of films that had Jimmy Stewart in them. He directed The Naked Spur, The Man from Laramie, of course this one. And he did some others as well. But Anthony Mann I think he understood Jimmy Stewart and really got the best out of him in a lot of films. In this film right here, it stars Jimmy Stewart. It has Shelley Winters, Dan Duryea, Will Geer. That's if you don't know who Will Geer is, he was in Jeremiah Johnson, but Will Geer is the guy that played Grandpa in the Waltons, and so he's played in some other films that I have mentioned in my top 50. Rock Hudson was in this. It also starred a young Tony Curtis. Probably one of his earliest roles, and I think he's cast in here and mentioned as Anthony Curtis, but Tony Curtis stars in this one as well. Jimmy Stewart plays a man named Lynn McAdams, and he's in this town, and him and another guy, they get named Dutch, they get in a shooting match to win a 1001 rifle, one of only 1,000 that was made. It's a beautiful Winchester 73 rifle. Two guys, Dutch and Lynn McAdams, who's played by Jimmy Stewart, they battle it out to win this rifle. In the end, Jimmy Stewart bests him. And then they're in town later, and just say that Lynn's getting ready to leave town, and Dutch and some of his friends, they ambush Jimmy Stewart's character. They ambush him and take his rifle. And the film is pretty much the entire film is it follows this rifle. It goes from being won by Jimmy Stewart to being stolen by his friend Dutch, and then everything that happens to that rifle the rest of the film, that's what the film is based on. And it's a pretty good premise for a film. You're constantly watching that rifle, and you're a little surprised. I've watched this, and you're just a little surprised by where it ends up and how many hands it passes through. And it actually, I didn't think about it, but it kind of reminds me of a book that I penned called Bitter Water. But it wasn't a gun that's being passed from hand to hand. It was people that were needing to get water and how their paths would cross and intersect. And so it reminds me a little bit of that book I wrote. But this is a great film. As I've said before, nobody in film other than possibly James Garner does a angry rage and just bitterness and hatred that Jimmy Stewart can do. I don't know a man that can call on that like Jimmy Stewart. The only other guy I knew could do it was James Garner. Strangely enough, both of them served in World War II, so they may just harken back when they're acting to those days. I mean, Jimmy Stewart was a pilot over there and flew a bunch of missions over war-torn Europe. And Jimmy Stewart saw a lot of death and a lot of suffering. And so maybe he calls upon that and makes him great in these roles. But I've told you before, and you've heard me say it before, that I just love Jimmy Stewart when he plays these parts. Because to me, I don't know anybody that completely seems like he changes his character what he normally is and can play these roles so well. I just love Jimmy Stewart in a lot of these films. And so that was number 28. Number 29 is a film from 1992, and that film is Unforgiven. Unforgiven was produced and directed by Clint Eastwood. This film, strangely enough, I used to tell my friends I didn't really care for this film very much. And as I get older and I possibly get smarter, maybe, this is another one of these films I've changed my opinion on over time, because it just becomes something. Maybe I see it differently now. Maybe it takes that. Maybe the personal losses of family and friends in my life has changed my opinion about it. I don't know. All right, now, Liz, this is number 29 on my top 50 Western films of all time. Clint Eastwood stars in this, and there's some great actors in this thing. Clint Eastwood plays William Money. Gene Hackman is a sheriff called Little Bill Daggett. Morgan Freeman and Richard Harris is in this as well. But there's so many good people in this. William Money is a widowed farmer trying to make a living on a farm, raising chickens, pigs, and trying to make a living with his two children. His wife has died, and he's not doing a very good job. The film starts out, and you see him trying to make a living, and he's struggling. And then something happens in a town not too far from there, where two men go in, they're with a prostitute, and one of the men gets rough with her and cuts up her face and scars her for life. And just no reason, just his own evil intentions, and he leaves her scarred, and some scars that will never go away, and she'll carry them the rest of her life. Of course, that angers the other prostitutes who are also her friend, and they go to the sheriff, who was played by Gene Hackman, Little Bill Daggett, and they go to him and want some kind of punishment for these two men that did this. And all Daggett does is turn around and make these two men give up some ponies to the owner of the bar and saloon and brothel, and that's how he pays these women back. He turns around and makes them give up a few ponies, the men that committed this crime. These women get together, pull their money, they come up with $1,000, and they take this $1,000 and they place upon the head of this guy that harmed this prostitute. And a guy that calls himself a killer and a bandit, calls himself the Schofield Kid, goes and finds William Money. And he turns around and tells him about what happens and tells him there's $1,000 out there they can collect if they go get this man. And so he encourages, at first, William Money turns him down, and then he changes his mind, probably afraid that he can't make a living for his kids. So this money would make a big difference to him. So he goes and gets his friend Ned, who's played by Morgan Freeman. And as I've said before, there's not a film ever done that Morgan Freeman's in that wasn't made better by his appearance. And this, of course, is another one. Morgan Freeman's just a excellent actor, and it really shows again in this film. But anyway, this film is just a good film by. It won several Academy Awards, and of course they liked it better than I did early on. And it's one more time when I was wrong, and because I think this film has went up in status with me as I've gotten older, and I think it's just an excellent film. Eastwood claimed when he did it that that would be his last ever traditional Western. He wasn't going to do he wasn't going to do them anymore. He said that everything else he was going to do was similar to films that were already made or would be some way be copying them, and he just didn't want to do that anymore, and he said that would be the last one he'd ever film. And my understanding was Gene Hackman didn't want this one because he thought the part was somewhat similar to ones he had won before, but Eastwood won him over and got him in his film. So Unforgiven, it was well thought of by the critics. It won Academy Awards, and Unforgiven, it's a good film. The one thing I didn't like about the film was the way it ended, and wasn't really fully resolved to me, or I felt like it wasn't. I've changed my mind about that over time, but I just think it's well worth your time. You ought to check it out. There are just some things I could tell you about it, and I'm afraid it'll spoil the film for you, and I won't do it. But Unforgiven, if you haven't seen it, it's well worth your time. You need to check it out. My final film that I have today comes in at number 30, and it was made in 1990, and it is Quigley Down Under. Many of you will know Quigley Down Under because most of you know Tom Selleck. And Tom Selleck was absolutely masterful in this role as Quigley. Now, I call it a Western, but this is a Western that takes place in Australia. And it's as good a Western as ever made, probably. It was directed by a man named Simon Windsor. Now, Simon Windsor is best known for, along with this, he's much better known for a role he directed called Lonesome Dove, a 4-part TV miniseries that played on television. And Simon Windsor, and honestly, when I found that out, I actually thought I could see some similarities between the two films, just kind of the way they're done and the way they portray the visuals and things such as that. I thought there were some similarities between this and Lonesome Dove in the way they were done, and Simon Windsor directed both of them. The fact that Simon Windsor directed Lonesome Dove, who is one of the greatest Westerns of all time, in Quigley Down Under, so we should not be surprised that this became a great film as well. Of course, this film stars Tom Selleck as Matthew Quigley. Alan Rickman plays Elliot Marston. Laura San Giacomo plays Crazy Cora. A brilliant Laura San Giacomo was just superb in this film. I mean, you probably didn't even like her much in the way the film starts, and I'll tell you what, she has a story that in this film that just constantly is unveiled over time as the story goes along, and she's an extremely sympathetic character. And this film is, I watched it last night. I just decided I was sitting in the house, and I sat and watched this film last night and took it all in again. in time to do this. And every time I watch it, I just see things I didn't notice before, and that's another one of these films. I've told you about several of them, and a lot of them in this are that way. But Quigley Down Under, if it comes on TV, it's another one of those things I'm going to sit right there at the end, unless the house catches on fire or somebody dies or something. It's just one of those films I've got to see from start to finish, and if I walk in the middle of it, I can't hardly leave, and it's just one of those. The film starts out, Elliot Marston is a big ranch owner, has a huge ranch over in Australia, and he sends out an ad all over the world. He's looking to hire the finest long-range marksman in the world, and he wants them, and he doesn't tell them that at the time, but what he has in mind is that they are going to kill the Aborigines who have figured out how to stay beyond Marston's guns. And so he needs somebody that can shoot much farther than the guns they have. And so he sends out an ad all over the world looking for the finest marksman in the world. And Quigley gives a different response than everybody else. He takes the ad that Marston sent out in the newspapers and shoots 6 bullet holes through it and writes 900 yards, Matthew Quigley. So he answered the ad by saying that he shot it 6 times from 900 yards, and that intrigued Marston. I mean, it was a way, it introduced him in a way that none of the other applicants to come get this job took. Of course, when Quigley gets over there, he finds out what Marston really has in mind for him to do, and it doesn't go well. Quigley has no interest in helping him kill a bunch of Aborigines, just take their lives just for no reason, just to purge them from the Australian outback, and it goes really downhill from there. There's not a film out there much that the Australian outback, as it is with almost all westerns, the landscape and the terrain become a part of the film and almost assume their own character. The same is here with the Australian outback. That becomes a huge character in this drama. And you will not find a better film that has adrenaline. It'll have you breathing hard. I mean, watching it, it's an adrenaline pumping film. It has action, multiple action scenes that just have you on the edge of your seat. And it's a thrill ride almost from the very minute Quigley finds out about what Marston wants him to do. A lot of Western films, I think people take the idea they're slow, or they don't show too much, or they go too slow. This is not one of them. This thing starts off and really gets to rolling. It'll have you sitting on the edge of your seat. And that happens several times throughout this film. I tell you what, Quigley Down Under is just, the soundtrack and the musical score is well done. In this film, I can't say enough about it. I love Quigley Down Under. And one of the biggest stars of this film, along with the terrain there in Australia, is a 1874 Sharps rifle. And that becomes a bigger character in this film as Marston or Quigley is. If you've never seen this film, you've done a disservice to yourself. You need to rush right out and find a way to watch it, because it's great. It's just, I'm not advertising for them, but this film can be found on Tubi, which you can get for free. And I watched it last night. So don't miss Quigley Down Under. It's just well worth your time. It's a great film, well worth watching, and you'll thank me when you do. Anyway, that is my 5 for this week. Number 26 from 1950 is The Gunfighter, starring Gregory Peck. Number 27 from 1957 is Gunfight, the OK Corral, starring Burt Lancaster and Kirk Douglas. Number 28 is Winchester 73, starring Jimmy Stewart. Number 29 is Unforgiven from 1992, starring Clint Eastwood, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman. And number 30 from 1990 is Unforgiven, starring, of course, Laura San Giacomo and Tom Selleck, and the 1874 Sharps Rifle. Those are our films for this week. I want to take this chance to wish each and every one of you a happy new year, and I hope your 2026 is filled with joy, happiness, health. I hope everything goes well for you in the coming year. Thank you for stopping in. I'll catch you again soon. Bye now.